that we as human beings are trying to be true to ourselves. It's so important to find another person in the world, whether it's a romantic partner or a friend or a family member, or maybe all three if you're that lucky, of people who really do believe in you and see the value for who you are at your core, so that then you can go to the rooftops and be even more comfortable being true to yourself and living your life with integrity. Happiness doesn't happen in a vacuum. Happiness happens when we're true to ourselves. We're true to the people that we care about around us. We're willing to take risks, to be authentic with ourselves, take risks to fight for what's right. This is what the movie Wicked does so brilliantly. My name's Laura Silverstein. I'm a certified Gottman Couples Therapist, author of Love is an Action Verb. And today we are going to be breaking down the relationships in Wicked. Let's start with the friendship between Dr. Dilamond and Elphaba, because in the very, very beginning, the minute that Elphaba sets foot on the campus of Shiz, he accepts her, so he's not responding to her as somebody with green skin. Likewise, she sees him as somebody to look up to, but also they share the bond of both being marginalized because of their external experiences. And so they both take risks for each other. And he's the one that really inspires her to use the magic that she has to do good. But it's a reciprocal relationship, because Elphaba also stands up for Dr. Dilamond, also sees him below the surface, sees him as somebody who is wise. He's a mentor. She looks up to him, and she's inspired to go to bat for all animals who are being discriminated against. But ironically, part of the reason that she's empowered to do that is because of this reciprocal relationship with Dr. Dilamond, because he's the person who had showed her that she does have power. You know, she should feel good about herself. Now let's turn to an example of an inauthentic relationship. And this one you might miss if you blink. It's the very, very beginning of the movie. We find out as viewers that Elphaba's mom had a secret from her family, in the sense that she was having an affair and hid it from Elphaba's dad, which brings a whole lot of questions into the future and paternity ideas, which are hinted at. So that's an example, again, of inauthenticity versus authenticity. And now let's talk about the relationship between Boq and Nessarose. That starts off on a lie, and it breaks my heart, you guys, because he's so close to telling her the truth. It's pretty obvious that Boq is interested in Glinda, and Glinda figures this out, and he approaches her. Now, instead of Glinda being honest with Boq and saying, hey, you know, I'm actually interested in somebody else, she manipulates him and uses Nessarose as a pawn by saying, hey, like, you know what you could do for me that would really help me and make me happy? Could you ask Nessa to the dance? Because look at that tragically beautiful girl over there. You know, so she's really objectifying Nessarose, that he should invite her to the dance because she's in a wheelchair. So he does it, and Nessa's pretty excited. And then later, he's almost going to tell her the truth. He comes so close, and it's so cringy to watch because you want him to do the right thing. And he begins to say, you know, I've got something to confess, which is in Gottman language, we talk it taking accountability. It's the right thing to do, like to admit that you're wrong, right? Nessa, I've got something to confess. There's a reason I asked you here. And he's about to tell her, right, that he basically was manipulated by somebody and wasn't very nice, which is so hard to do. It's hard to be honest and acknowledge that you've made a mistake and you're not the best self. So he starts to do that, and she jumps in and says, no, I know why. I know why you asked me here. And he's a little bit relieved for a second. He's like, you are? And he's thinking, oh, good, like I'm off the hook. I shouldn't have done this, but it's all going to be over. And then she says, it's because I'm in this chair. And he's like, what? No. So then Boq wants to prove that he didn't ask Nessa to the dance because he felt sorry for her. And so he lies in that moment. which fundamentally changes the arc of his happiness and Nessa's happiness, and a tremendously abusive relationship ensues as a result of him making that decision to pivot. It's not easy to be authentic, and the risks are tremendous when we worry about our perception more than true to ourselves. So it impacts ourselves, it also impacts our relationship. If you're not convinced that this movie is all about this theme, I want to read some dialogue for you between Elphaba and Fiyero. Okay, so this is after Fiero's dancing around, showing how cool he is, and Elphaba says, "So, no matter how shallow and self-absorbed you pretend to be," notice the word pretend. This is all about pretending versus authenticity, right? Okay, so that's what Elphaba says. Fiyero, she's about to keep talking. Fiyero actually interrupts her at that time, and Fiyero says, excuse me, there's no pretense here. I happen to be genuinely self-absorbed and deeply shallow. And then Elphaba says, oh, please, no, you're not. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so unhappy. So Elphaba is calling Fiyero out on this contradiction, and Fiero's interestingly paradoxical in his response by saying that he's deeply shallow, right? So this idea of seeing below the surface, are you deep, are you shallow? Are you authentic, are you lying? Are you pretending to be, or are you real? And then Elphaba brings in, oh, please, no, you're not. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so unhappy. So it might be that Elphaba sees through what Fiyero could be doing is called masking, sort of pretending to feel so good about who he is and being kind of dumb and not caring about school, that maybe that's not actually who he is. We find out later as the movie goes on. Then we've got the relationship between Glinda and Elphaba.
World City. Come with me. What? To meet the wizard.
I couldn't possibly. This is your moment. I'm coming.
So this relationship between Glinda and Elphaba is really what the core of the movie, I think, is all about, in my opinion, that Glinda and Elphaba both take the journey of starting off being kind of insecure about who they are, being more and more authentic with themselves and true to themselves, and also seeing below the surface for their own friendship. In the beginning, Glinda and Elphaba just see each other as like, you're the outsider and you're the popular one. And they have those external stereotypes that they're basing their opinions on, being blonde, being green, even though she knows she's not supposed to say it. And yet they get to know each other. And here's where this pivotal change happens, because they play a prank on Elphaba. Glinda is the one with the social power in the situation. Glinda has friends, Elphaba does not. And yet it's making it seem like they like her, they're inviting her into their group, we want you to come to this dance. And so then the prank really backfires. So they're at the dance, and Fiyero says she doesn't care what anyone thinks. And he's kind of looking up to her in that moment. And Glinda says, of course she does. She just pretends not to. Here's an example where Glinda is seeing beneath the surface of Elphaba with what she's pretending. Then comes the transformational scene where Glinda just goes for it, right? And she's dancing, and Glinda takes the risk to join her in the dance. So if you look really closely, you can see the tear coming from Elphaba's cheek after Glinda basically saves her socially, goes to bat for her, puts herself on a limb. Remember, it's about taking risks. And Glinda comes and dances together with Elphaba, and then the rest of the crowd comes in. And this is the beginning of the transformation. Now let's move to Madame Moribelle and the wizard. So here's really difference between socially uncomfortable lying, the kind of lying that people say to save face, versus manipulative, toxic, abusive lying.
You have no real power.
Exactly. That's why I need you.
So Madame Moribelle and the wizard lie to both Elphaba and Glinda with the goal of achieving their own horrible agenda of persecution. Defying Gravity is all about the fact that they're taking different paths. And in the beginning, they're like angry about it, right? Which is so relatable. When we care about somebody, we love somebody, we have a close friendship, we don't want them to disagree. We believe we know what's right and wrong. And Glinda's feeling very protective of Elphaba, like, don't do this to yourself, right? You're going to be hurt. And Elphaba feels some judgment toward Glinda around being more authentic, being, having more integrity, to be willing to go against the grain. And yet they still love and accept each other anyway. Elphaba realizes this is who you are, and I really do hope you're happy. Not I hope you're happy, I really do hope you're happy. And they get it. You see, they get it. They get, you're different from me. Not just because you're blonde and I'm green, like deeply have different morals, different ethics, beliefs about what to do in this situation. And I accept you anyway, which is the ultimate intimacy, the ultimate acceptance of what happens when you know somebody deeply, you know what you love about them and what you disagree with them about, and you support them anyway. And that's what I love about this.